In today's video, we are going to discuss the relationship between dopamine and our technology. If you want to be successful, you need to understand where you waste your time. I guarantee your phone or tablet is one of those reasons. Here's a situation which I'm sure you can relate to. Your phone buzzes, you pick it up to check one notification, and 45 minutes later, you're still scrolling. Let's understand this simply from the lens of neuroscience. This something is dopamine, which is simply more than the brain's feel-good chemical. That's only half the picture, and the other half that's missing explains everything about why you can't put your phone down. Your brain's dopamine system is like a seesaw. When nothing is happening, it sits level. The moment that you anticipate a reward, dopamine floods the circuit, specifically a structure called the nucleus accumbens, which is deep inside your brain, and tilts the seesaw towards pleasure. Kent Berridge, a neuroscientist at the University of Michigan, have clarified through decades of research that dopamine is less about liking something and more about wanting it. It is more of an engine of anticipation and seeking, not necessarily satisfaction. Can you already see how this relates to the current models of social media? Social media platforms didn't just stumble onto this by accident. They actually engineered it. And as much good as technology will do for the world, on the flip side, there is going to be a lot of human detriment to account for. The design feature that makes these platforms so neurologically potent is something behavioral scientists call a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, a concept from the work of B.F. Skinner in the mid-20th century. The core idea is that unpredictable rewards are far more compulsive than predictable ones. A slot machine doesn't pay out every single pull, it pays out sometimes, and that uncertainty is precisely what keeps people pulling. A review published in the International Journal of Innovative Research and Technology by Sharma and Pathan found that social media platforms tap into this exact mechanism. The variable arrival of likes, comments, and new content creates a state of uncertain anticipation that maximizes dopamine release far more effectively than a guaranteed reward ever could. When you scroll and don't find anything interesting, you keep scrolling because the next thing might be the reward. When a post you made gets no likes for an hour and then suddenly gets you 3 at once, your brain lights up harder than it would have if those likes arrived steadily. Neuroimaging research published in Curious confirms the structural stakes. Prolonged social media use produces measurable changes in the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, the regions governing decision-making, emotional regulation, and reward processing. From a medical perspective, these changes look strikingly similar to those seen in substance use disorders. The prefrontal cortex, our brain's braking system, loses gray matter volume over time. Inhibitory control weakens, and the brain begins to prioritize the scroll over long-term judgment. With this in mind, if the seesaw has tilted towards pleasure this whole time of our conversation, it must now come back down. This is the insight that Stanford psychiatrist Dr. Anna Lembke develops at the heart of her book, Dopamine Nation. The brain, she explains, is built to maintain equilibrium. Every time the seesaw tips towards pleasure, powerful self-regulating mechanisms fire to bring it back to level. However, the response may push it past level, tipping the seesaw in an equal and opposite amount toward pain. The come down is not a side effect, it's the actual mechanism of our brains. Lemke writes, with repeated exposure to the same or similar pleasure stimulus, the initial deviation to the side of pleasure gets weaker and shorter, and the after response to the side of pain gets stronger and longer. Scientists call this neuroadaptation, but the rest of us in modern life call it tolerance. We need more of the same stimulus just to feel what we used to feel, and when we don't get it, we don't just feel neutral, we normally feel worse than baseline. That's withdrawal from Instagram. That's the anxious itch when your phone is not in your hand. Social media can cause the release of dopamine into the brain's reward pathway in quantities comparable to certain drugs, not because it's a drug itself, but because it hijacks the same ancient circuitry that drugs hijacked. The smartphone, Lemke argues, is the modern hypodermic needle, delivering digital dopamine directly to the reward system through its bright colors, engineered alerts, and personalized content stream that never ever runs out. The result across millions of people is what she calls a chronic dopamine deficit state. Dopamine set point, the baseline level of dopamine from which we experience everyday life, shifts downward. The seesaw shifts flatter. The world feels flatter. The quiet feels unbearable, and other pleasures, whether it's a walk, a conversation, a book, fail to register the way that it used to. We don't feel good on social media so much as we feel temporarily less bad, and that's how the platform was designed. Conceptually, she frames all of this by illustrating the visual of a cacti in a rainforest. Our brains evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in an environment of scarcity, whether that be food, social connection, or novelty. Dopamine was the signal that told us to pay attention because this was important. It was calibrated for a world where interesting things were rare. Now we carry a device in our pocket that delivers millions of those signals per day, every one of them engineered to feel just as important, enough to keep us looking, not important enough to ever feel satisfied. The analogy is that the cactus has enough water but is drowning because it keeps reaching for more. Your seesaw never finds level. With this in mind, what have you learned from this video? I would like to hear in the comments down below. More importantly, with these points in mind, what actions will you change in your life to improve upon your relationship with technology? If you would like to dive deeper into the subject, I highly recommend reading Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke, who I referenced in this video. You can find my personal book recommendation storefront in the description box down below. I personally use and affiliate with bookshop.org to buy books online because they directly support independent bookstores and the values of my channel aligns with them. I update my reading recommendations frequently, and I hope my curated reading list helps to spark your ideas and make you a better version of yourself. Thanks for watching Spark Studios, where my goal is to help spark your ideas. Please subscribe for more thought leadership content like this.